tried to make something on Pinterest and it turns out to be way harder than you thought it was? That's the situation that I'm in.
Spoiler alert, I got there in the end, along with some other easy little project ideas which I'm really excited to show you. But for now, let's get back to what I was saying.
I am midway through a total Pinterest fail, but I'm not giving up. So I'm trying really hard to pull this off because I just can't believe that it can be this hard to make a baby playmat. Let me just show you what I'm trying to do here. This is the playmat that I'm trying to recreate. I saw it on Pinterest and I really like it and I just wanted to buy it, but it's not available. So I have no choice but to try and make it myself. Now, I've never made anything like this before, but I thought, how hard can it be? It's literally just a playmat. Like, you know, it can be very forgiving. It doesn't need to be perfect. I can totally do this. This seems really easy. It's not though. So let me catch you up on where I'm at so far because I think that I've got some good ideas and I think even though I've failed this so far, I'm actually really close to succeeding. Let me show you what I mean. So to copy this kind of design, I knew I needed to get this kind of like stripy fabric and I needed the complementary green and white kind of look for the top of the apple. Now, because this isn't available anymore, I don't actually know what the back of it looks like, but I'm assuming it's the opposite colors. So the apple is green and then the leaves are red on the reverse, which is fine. Now, I was lucky enough to find this duvet cover set that basically is perfect for this. And I thought this is such a clever way to get fabric because it's easier and it's cheaper than buying fabric. And then that starts to open up a whole world of like fabric options of if you want to do a sewing project, maybe you don't need to go to a fabric store. You could just go and look at bedding or cushions or anything. And you could also look at the charity shop or on eBay or anywhere else for maybe something vintage and cool. And that's kind of like got my mind going and I've got all these sewing projects in my head at the moment off the back of that because I feel like when you go to a fabric store, it's often very cheap and uninspiring fabric or it's quite expensive, and if your sewing skills are like mine, you feel a little bit intimidated by taking on something with like really nice fabric because like my failure rate is quite high with sewing projects. So I would say that my sewing skills are above a high school level, but not much better than that. So I do have enthusiasm and interest and I know the basics and I know all the terminology and I've got a bit of the gear, but I'm not that good. And my main problem is actually not around my skills, it's around my weaknesses, which is I get impatient and I cut corners and you know, sewing projects require so much like patience and and that's just not my strength. So often I kind of make bad decisions and then ruin what I'm trying to make. So hence why we're in the situation that we're in actually. So what I've done so far, this was wrong. I thought, how hard can this be? All this is two pieces of fabric with some wadding in the middle and then stitch around to create a bit of a design and then secure it, you know, seal it around the edges and then do the same kind of thing on a smaller scale to create the leaves. And like, then you're done. And I thought this can't be hard because it's not like there's zips and flaps and darts and all the things that can, you know, complicate something. And it's not like it needs to move. It's just a mat that sits on the floor. It seemed so easy, but it's been really hard. So I thought, since I've got this duvet cover and these colors are pretty much right for what I need, I could just put the wadding in. And I saw on the internet that people say that you need to do the quilting first and then seal it at the end, and that's the best way that you get the distribution of the fluffiness or something like that. So I started doing that, and I did not cut out the shape of the apple. I just drew it with that Pilot pen that is really, really good. If you don't have one, you should get one because it's a pen, but the ink disappears with heat. So you could draw all over the fabric, whatever you need, and then when you're finished with all of this, you just go over it with an iron and it disappears. So that's a really good thing. I'll link to it below. I really love that pen. But anyway, the pen was not enough to save me in my poorly planned and poorly executed concept. So I just basically put this wadding in and started to try and like stitch down around the rough shape that I'd created. And it was okay for the inner one, but the next one out, I don't know why, the stitching underneath was just all messy. So we did it and I just found myself at this very familiar place in a sewing project for me, which is maybe I should just chuck this in the bin and give up. But I'm not doing that. I'm not letting that defeat me. I think I know what I've done wrong. I think that the wadding that I've used is too thick for my very basic sewing machine, and I didn't use a special needle, and I don't want to use a special needle, and I didn't make changes to the tension, and I don't want to make changes to the tension. So I've got to wind it in on how thick this thing is, because you know, it's not really meant to do super thick. But this is 3 layers of the wadding. Even 1 layer, I think, might be enough for this. I think I've gone too over the top with it. So here we are. I have spent quite some time unpicking all of the stitching that I did. I have cut around the edges. I'm going to remove 2 of the layers of the wadding, and now I'm going to do what I should have done in the beginning, which is test that my sewing machine can stitch successfully, and can we get to a successful thing where the stitching doesn't look messed up. Then, if I know that that's okay, I'm going to start this again. I've got the shape cut out this time, which is what I should have done from the beginning, but I was just trying to, like, I just always cut corners with sewing projects, and I don't really know, and I just think it's, I don't know, ADHD or something. I just can't like slow down. So anyway, I'm practicing slowing down. This is it. You're watching it. This is it. This is me slowing down. So let's do a test now and just see how it goes.
So I took a scrap of my fabric and just tested 2 pieces of fabric with 1 layer of wadding in the middle, and just stitched a straight line just to see how that looked. And while the top looked good, the bottom looked a bit weird because I was using a different colored bobbin thread. I thought that I was being really clever, but like, yeah, looking at it, that was such a bad idea. So I thought, let's just simplify this and stop trying to be really clever. So let's get some matching pink thread on the bobbin, and let's just focus on the journey of the pink thread on the pink side of the fabric. Like, calm down. Let's just do one thing at a time here. And that so is the summary of how I need to approach all of my sewing projects. Just like one thing at a time. Stop trying to be like so clever that then you cut corners. You know, you think you're being clever, but you're not. So just one thing at a time. So knowing that that stitch worked nicely with 1 layer of wadding, I then got my apple shape and just tidied up the cuts that I'd done on the wadding so that it was nice and neat and ready to be stitched on this new layer.
Now, it's at this point I need to make a critical decision. For the quilting, do I want to do like the original one has, just like a few concentric sort of apple-ish shapes, maybe 3 rows of stitching, and then the final will be the edge, which will be a different thing? Or do I want to do straight lines? Obviously, I have the guidelines that I could follow of this. It would be more work to do with each line, like I'd have to do a lot more stitches. I'd have to do more stitches, but they would be maybe easier, but maybe not. Maybe actually I'm better off drawing it out. And yes, it's a bit more like maneuvering and turning it around in the sewing machine, but it's more forgiving. Whereas if I go a little bit crooked on the stripes, you'll really be able to tell. Okay, well, I think that's decision made. So I've got to draw these out now. And so my plan is I'm just going to do it open like this. And the reverse side, the green side, I might just not have any quilting on it, and that can just be flat at the back. Because I considered sort of doing this same process for the green one, for the green side, and then when you put them together, they would be like 2 layers of wadding. But after the first attempt at this, now I'm scared of too much wadding. So I feel like, you know, this is this part that I get to with all of my projects, which is like, rein it in, calm down. You've never done this before. Like, let's start with level 1, you know, start the easy thing. And then if I do this and it's a success, I can come back and do a more complicated one and quilt whatever I want to quilt. I'm allowed. But at the moment, I'm not qualified at all. I've never quilted anything before, you know? So let's just like keep it under control.
So I just roughly sketched out 2 lines for the quilting of like concentric shapes. And I do wish I had done 3 of the quilting lines. I wish they'd just been a bit tighter and smaller. I think that would have looked better, but you can learn from my mistakes. So then I just stitched around those lines, and that worked a lot better and looked neat and fine and acceptable. And so then it just kind of got easy from there, because I was able to just lay it down flat with the right side up. And then I could get the backing piece, which for me was green stripe, but you could do whatever you wanted, and put those 2 pieces right side together, and then basically just sewed around the edges then. So then it's just a case of turning it inside out. So you've got 2 pieces of fabric you've essentially sewn together and turned inside out. One is quilted and one isn't. But I could have quilted both if I wanted to. But I just didn't. So I repeated the same steps to make my little leaves that I then sewed at the top. And it was at this point that I gave my little mat a little iron. So please enjoy the satisfaction of watching the pen disappear under the heat of the iron. It's just so satisfying. I just love this pen so much. So I really thought I was on the home stretch here. Like, we've basically finished constructing this. I just wanted to do a top stitch around the edge just to give it a nice effect. But it was only once I had started doing that top stitch that I realized I was running out of thread. And I was looking at it and I was like, maybe there's enough to make it the whole way around. It's going to be close. And so I just thought, well, let's just go, you know, as far as we can make it. So I ran out about halfway through. So I'll have to fix that up when I get some more thread. But it's close enough. I still think I have succeeded here. This is the idea I had in my head. And looking on the positive side of this, I've learned a lot of lessons, and I definitely could do it a lot better if I tried a second time. And oh, what's that? Here's a little visitor from the future. This is Harry. And so far, he hasn't seemed to have noticed any of the poorly executed parts of this playmat. And I must say, he's doing a very good job of being a playmat model. Look at how good he makes it look. Oh, demonstrating with a little bit of tummy time. Well done, mate. Very good, very good. Isn't he such a good boy? So let's just get back to the project. And the other positive thing that came out of this is that when I folded it up like this, I realized this actually could double as a little wrap when the baby's really small and it's in that bassinet little thing when you go out on walks. And actually, this could double as a little foot muff, winter warmer kind of thing. So that's a bonus. So that's definitely an idea I've got in my head maybe for another project that I could do with that intention. But for now, let me tell you about the second project that I did. This was just so surprisingly easy. And I just used bits of fabric that I had from this playmat. And it worked out so good.
I made this little cosmetic pouch, I suppose you'd call it. It's actually not that little, it's a little bit big. I actually made this at like half time of my baby mat project where I was really about to give up. I thought the playmat was going to be so easy that it'd just be a good little sort of stretch your legs, get back into sewing, and then I could try this. I've never really made anything this functional, I think, or robust, I think is probably the right word. I tend to make things that kind of like fall apart or whatever. You know, when there's things like zips involved, you've got to do it properly. I cannot believe how easy this was. Like, it was So easy. I actually followed a tutorial on YouTube and I'll link it below because I thought it was really, really good. And now I'm like watching all of this girl's videos because I really like what she does and she explains things really well. I just did this like on a whim with some of the scrap fabrics. I didn't fully follow her thing. She actually did edging. So while I did do lining, so it's green on the inside, I didn't edge it. So you can see like how that's all sort of raw there and like raw there. She edged hers and I just didn't really think it was worth it because I was like, oh, this is just a test, just a bit of scrap fabric. And I've done it and I'm like, oh, this actually turned out so well. And it was so easy. I can't tell you how easy it was. If you're thinking that you want something like this, I specifically wanted one. I wanted a cosmetic bag like this that was a little bit bigger, that was going to fit newborn nappies perfectly for my hospital bag. And I wanted to get a little set because I want to put like baby stuff in one, my stuff in another, and maybe combined stuff in another one, you know? So I've got an idea about making a few more of these. I've got something coming. So I'm gonna make a separate video showing the whole process because I honestly think, I just can't believe how easy this was. It's a good gift as well. And because it's small, it's the kind of thing you can do with like your bits of fabric that you have lying around because you can make really small ones and things. So that weirdly ended up being the easy part and the playmat was hard. So that I'll make a separate video about that because I'm gonna make some more. I'm just waiting for some stuff that I've bought to arrive because I've got some interesting ideas about how to make it, you know, unique. But that brings me to the third idea I have. This is all like baby related sewing projects, you know, and that is muslins. Don't worry, not boring muslins. We're not getting boring over here. Don't worry about that. That's the point, actually, is that we're not getting boring over here. Muslins are boring and they're always like cutie, baby, goo goo gaga, teddy bears, and it's like, why can't we just have some nice ones? You know, I'm the one who's looking at it. The baby won't know the difference. Like, you know, he's not gonna have any preferences yet. Can't I just have some nice muslins? Why are they all so babyish? And the one that I found that I liked was really expensive. And I thought, okay, it's expensive for one, but I realistically need like 30 of these. So I'm definitely not getting that one. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to make something like this myself. And I've used this as like my inspiration starting point of like, I wanna create something like this. So first of all, I just tried sewing a muslin. So this is just some fabric that I bought online. I'll link to it below. This is a two-sided, you know, piece of fabric. So we've got the thicker gingham and then the thinner one here. And I really like it. And I found it really easy just with my simple sewing machine. I don't have a fancy sewing machine. And I literally didn't even pin it. I just rolled it as I went. And it's good enough. It's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. I left this side raw because quite frankly, I don't hate it. But that was my test to be like, okay, can we do this? So if you wanted to get some cute muslin fabric, you could just buy some kind of fabric like this, make some. That's really gorgeous and such an upgrade from like the cheesy baby ones. But I, of course, had to take it to the next level. And so I ended up making a whole selection of them. Here's a preview of one. So I think I've nailed it on trying to get the same vibe as that inspiration one. This cost a fraction of what that one cost, but does look similar. And I've done a bunch of designs, like a bunch. Basically, what I've done is I've created these designs with AI. So they are not perfect. There are some kooky and quirky things going on in these pictures, like a lady with sort of one eye. All sorts of things, 2-headed birds, 3-headed cats, like all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But that doesn't bother me for the purposes of this project because I just wanted to test. So I got all the images I liked, got it printed on fabric, and then cut them and sewed the edges just like with this test. Turns out the first fabric I did it on wasn't actually muslin, and It's a cotton, it's like a handkerchief, which is not a bad thing because now I'm using them as handkerchiefs as well. I've got one in the pocket of every single coat I have. So that's like, it's still usable, it's still fine, but it's not that, you know, wrinkly, really absorbent fabric that you really want. So then I found another supplier, and this one is in Turkey, and I'll link it below, but maybe you might have one closer to you that can do the same thing. And this is much better. This is the proper fabric. This is what I wanted the whole time. So I definitely recommend that supplier. And I think that where we're at now is I've done this test. I've tested this out and it worked. So now, given my little, you know, 3-headed cats and everything, for my purposes, that's fine. While I'm sitting there breastfeeding, I can have a little Where's Wally and look at how many weird and quirky things are going wrong in the images. And, you know, that's a little project. But here's where you could take it to the next level, because if you were certain which design you really, really liked, you could then go and use this just as a base, because AI is getting better all the time, but at the moment it still does some weird things. So I think that the concept for this is to take your AI generated image as like a foundation of a concept that's like, here's an image, and then now let's tidy it up. Whether you can do that yourself or you want to get like a graphic designer or something. But I just think it's a really interesting starting off point, because this is the way that you can take whatever's in your head, whatever might be sentimental or whatever, you know, might have meaning to you. It could be a really beautiful gift if you had something special that you could recreate in, you know, this beautiful, or any kind of, you know, art style. And I have done some that are a little bit different. So I've got this one that's a bit more of like pastel colors, a bit brighter. And then I think, and I was just really experimenting with all the different types of designs I could think of, just because this is a test, you know, just seeing what turns out well, what I like, everything. So you can see there's some more colorful ones as well. But it's a jumping off point. And I wanted to share it with you because I thought it could be maybe very inspiring for an idea. So my idea would be, you could create something like this that, you know, maybe has some meaning of a location that's special or whatever. You could also customize it with, if you were making it for, you know, a baby and you knew the name of the baby, you could, you know, get that included in the design perhaps. And then when it's printed, it says the baby's name maybe, or maybe you could get it embroidered. Although I don't know if embroidery is that practical on these types of things. It might be a little bit, might not be the best thing, but you could get it included in the design. You could have something meaningful. And the other thing is, like what I've ended up doing with these ones that are just out of the plain cotton rather than a muslin, is they could be handkerchiefs. And so you could actually make like gifts for just a normal person, not a baby person, and have something really special. You could use AI and like tidy it up in the way that these definitely need to be. Or you could design it yourself if you've got those skills, or whatever. Find something that you like online, you know, get some ideas, get some inspiration. So yeah, I just think it's a really clever idea to have something more unique. And like now when I'm sitting there breastfeeding, I'm just going to be able to look at like, oh, isn't that just something else to look at rather than another teddy bear, you know, just sick of the teddy bear stuff. So yeah, very special, very unique. I really love it. So if you make any of these or come up with any designs, tag me on Instagram. I would absolutely love to see what you come up with. Like that one's quite a bit different to all the other ones I've done. But you know, the options are endless. You could do leopard print, you could do whatever you feel like. And I don't know, it's just such a nice way to like add your own personality and like what you like into something that is otherwise very generic. And I do think with the muslin thing, everyone, you know, everyone with a little newborn baby, especially if their baby has reflux, needs these and they're going to use them. It's just useful. You know, like they're actually going to use them, and you could just take something that is just otherwise a very like just standard thing and actually make it a little bit special and a little bit unique. So I hope you like that as an idea. I think the options are really endless, and I'm into this idea of getting fabric printed. It kind of comes back to the beginning of this whole project, because I am now into this idea of thinking outside the box for fabric and prints of fabric, and how can you get fabric for your projects that doesn't look like it came from the fabric shop, you know, just the generic same old stuff that's usually low quality or too expensive to really let yourself loose on if you're like me. And so yeah, getting something that just has your personality in it. And also these projects are just like manageable for a high school skill set like me, and maybe you as well. So it's very satisfying to feel like I'm actually creating something that's useful, but it's not intimidating as a sewing project at all. And it's forgiving. Like, you know, if it's a little bit crooked, it's okay. It's still going to get the job done. Like, these are essentially for wiping out baby vomit. Like, we don't need straight lines to get that done. So, you know, depending on your skill set, maybe you could do something really beautiful, and maybe you would do a perfectly straight thing, and that would be even better. But it's forgiving, you know, it's forgiving and it's satisfying and it's special. So I love it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm just folding all these back up again and putting them away, getting ready, all of my baby stuff ready. I definitely will be making a video about the pouch soon, because it's just so much easier than you think it is. Honestly, I just actually can't believe how easy and doable it was, and it's actually another like useful thing. So keep your eyes peeled for that video. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already, and follow me on Instagram if you want to see updates of what I'm getting up to in between videos, and I'll see you in the next video.
Wait a minute, you didn't think I could leave you without one more little presentation from baby Harry. Here he is, showing off this beautiful muslin that I made. And you can see the fabric texture as it's been in the wash, how it's really gotten so soft. And it's a good size, and he just is loving it. Look, good on you, Harry, very good. Isn't he just so good at showing off my creations? And he seems to be absolutely loving it, so good boy, good boy. So Harry and I have got some cuddling to do, so we're going to go and do that, and we'll see you in the next video.